Hi everyone, welcome to Stories to Lead. I'm really excited to be interviewing Sarah Owen-Vandersluis today. She is a partner at KPMG in London, where she grew her team from 8 to 50 people in 4 years. Sarah grew up in rural Canada. She has a PhD in international political economy from the London School of Economics. And when she's not working, she regularly visits India, where she's sponsoring 2 girls through school. Welcome, Sarah.
Thanks, Sue.
So tell me your story.
Well, it's I guess you've summed it up nicely in terms of the key points. Yeah, grew up in rural Canada, though there never felt like there was anything I couldn't aspire to. So grew up with a very supportive family, and in particular, I remember my mother saying to me, if someone invites you to do something or asks you to do something or gives you an opportunity, you grab it. And today, even that comes to mind when I'm, a little nervous about something, or there's some big speaking opportunity or something. That is really inbred in me. And I think that also then launched me forward to go to university in London, where I found a real intellectual home at the London School of Economics and stayed there actually for 3 degrees and 10 years. I suspect some people thought I would never join the workforce properly after that. But I found a real home in a multicultural London and an intellectual home at the LSE. Of course, at some point it came time to work. And I guess the other part of my story is that I'm not very good at sitting still. I'm naturally really curious. I naturally like to really be on the move. And so consulting provided a really, really good avenue for me to get a lot of variety in my working life and to have a lot of upward opportunities for advancement. And so I joined KPMG in 2005, incredibly, because I wasn't an accountant. I didn't think I was a logical person for KPMG, and yet it's been a great ride, as it were, through a massive variety of client engagements and with continued development possibilities. So we might come on to this, but the opportunity to live and work in Spain for 3.5 years when I was approaching 40 was just incredible. I mean, to be given that chance, but also the mind-opening nature of working in another culture and learning another language at that point in my life was brilliant, and really changed my outlook when I came back to the UK. I came back and then grew the business that we might talk about as well. So I guess it's a story of grabbing opportunities and being curious and not really being very good at sitting still.
And there's so many parts to that story. When I was looking at some of your achievements, I was like, wow, where do we start with this? So was there a defining moment in your life and in your career? And if so, what was it?
I could name a number of them, actually. I think probably for me personally, the most defining moment was achieving a first-class degree in London. And that's because I'd always thought of myself as a bright person. I'd always succeeded academically. And when I came to London, it was on a different scale. Just the kind of the requirement to think outside the box and to present new arguments in order to get a first is something that for the first time in my life, I had to try really hard and learn how to do something different. And so I'll always be enormously proud of that. And that was an achievement for my family as well, to be sending me, an only child, overseas and to be funding that mission. So I'll always be proud of that. And after that, it will be my PhD. Would be another big hurdle, just because it was so long and hard, as anyone who's done a PhD will know. And those are probably more defining of me than the professional moments. They probably speak more to who I am intrinsically.
And you mentioned earlier that perhaps this is something that I also perceive, that perhaps you're not the sort of leader that a lot of people would imagine that you have to be a partner at KPMG. How would you describe your leadership style?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Suzanne, and I wouldn't mind just unpicking a bit, and then I will come back to the leadership style. So I think 10 years ago, being an academically minded female leader probably wasn't as common in the Big Four as it is now. So now I feel we have a really diverse partner group. I feel very welcomed in that group, and I can feel the change in our culture that's taken place over the last 10 years. And I think that's really important because, you know, maybe what something looks like from the outside versus how it's changed on the inside is different. And I feel like I've been along that journey, you know. And so we talked before about how the first time I came up for partner promotion, I interviewed and I was told I didn't have the right style. And bear in mind, I was making quite a lot of money for the firm at the time and had very happy clients. And so not having the right style struck me as a very odd comment. It was a very difficult comment for me. I don't think that would happen in my firm now. And I think that's really important to state. And that's partly because people like me have come through and our partner group is that much more inclusive and diverse. And so if we could then come back to my leadership style, it's always hard to describe oneself, right? But if I try to do it, I try to be very empathetic. I really try to put myself in the shoes of the people who are working for me. And I don't just mean when we have career discussions, but when I'm sending an email, I might write the email and then I think, oh my goodness, I forgot to even ask how their weekend was. Or they might have told me the week before that they were going to try to find some good Asian food in London because they were missing home. Well, ask them, did you find that? And same at interviews. I try to spend a lot of time getting to know candidates, getting to understand what really makes them passionate, what really makes them tick. And that's partly for me a way of judging fit, but it's a way for me to start to understand what the deal looks like for them around their career, right? So I often think that, you know, people spend, unfortunately, more than 50% of their waking hours at work. And for many people, their career is one of the most rewarding things in their lives. And I feel that the people who work with me, and for me, I guess, have entrusted me with that amount of their lives, that amount of time, and something so important to them. And so as a result, it has to be a two-way street, which I think is maybe a different style to 20, 30 years ago, where people were expected to turn up, do the job, and maybe get promoted.
And I think that would explain why you've been so successful in your job, right? That you've been able to foster this environment where people feel comfortable, whoever they are. I mean, in terms of like, if you were to give advice to somebody who wanted to get where you've got to, what would you say to them?
Well, in terms of leadership, I heard something really, really helpful, really simple, really helpful about 3 weeks ago, which is feelings before tasks. And that is, to me, is just a really easy way of starting to think about, well, actually being emotionally authentic as well with people. And feelings might be, how am I feeling? And for some leaders, that's really hard. How am I feeling about the situation in which our firm finds ourselves? Or how am I feeling about where we got to, let's say this year on benefits? Might be a hard story, but I have feelings about it. I also want to know their feelings about it. And I think that really helps. I think listening is really, really important. I also think that I personally feel that when we talk about inclusion and diversity, which is obviously a massively important topic, I feel very strongly that inclusion is the more important piece of that as a leader to strive for, and that if we do that well and keep an eye on how we're doing that we will get good outcomes for everybody. And by everybody, I mean white men as well, because I've always tried to create a team where literally everybody feels welcome. I also think that in professional services, we have a really unique environment, especially if you think that growth in professional services creates opportunities for promotion, creates opportunities for new jobs. One person's success doesn't have to come at the expense of anybody else's. And finding out what success means for each individual is a really important aspect of it, which means it takes a lot of time as well. And that, for me, I enjoy that part, but it does take time.